In part 1, I blasted you guys with all the basic information you really need to know. Now that you have that basic foundation, it's time we start getting into useful training concepts. In this video, there will only be 6, but they are very important. And if you really understand them, it'll allow you to take your training to the next level. So I highly recommend you pay attention and write any questions you might have down in the comments. Let's get started. There's a lot of really important things we gotta cover. The next one is the SAID principle. The SAID principle is specific adaptations to impose demands. Ito once said that the SAID principle is kind of like gravity, and so it's something we have to fight, but it's always there. We can't avoid it. What the SAID principle means is that with any stimulus, your body is going to give a specific adaptation to that stimulus. Take someone off the couch. If you have them start training for a very long endurance event, a ultramarathon, you have that person try to do a very short, explosive exercise, maximal strength over, say, 2 seconds. What you find is that that person may have improved a little, but what they've trained is so different from that short, intense burst that they're not gonna get that much transfer. So the person that's training for the endurance event, they're gonna get transferred to endurance tasks. The person that's training for the power event, they're gonna get more transfer to the power task. That's the specificity, is that your body is adapting specifically to the stimulus in that environment. As much as we don't like it, it's something really important that we have to keep in mind. People will ask me all the time, they're like, I'm doing this exercise and I'm having trouble with it. How do I improve it? Well, guess what? In the vast majority of cases, the best way you can improve that thing is by doing more of that thing. In anything, if you're having trouble with a handstand, the best thing is do more handstands. You're having trouble with running, do more running. You're having trouble, anything, it feels weak, it feels unskilled, it feels clumsy. The first solution, the easiest solution, the simplest and best solution is always gonna be specificity. Do more of that thing. That thing is the solution. And so if we have to approach something with a different drill or a different exercise because of specificity, we aren't gonna get as much transfer as working on that thing itself. That brings us to our next principle, volume and intensity. So Archimedes said, give me a lever long enough and I'll lift the earth. Well, I say, give me enough volume at proper intensity and I'll get you any skill. Volume and intensity are the king of adaptation. Volume is by far the largest driver of progress. And so the first thing is always, you wanna make more progress, do more volume, because you're probably not doing enough. You're probably not doing so much that you're maximizing or overwhelming the system. This is actually a topic that I'm making an entire video about. It deserves its own video and we're doing that. For now, just at a basic level, volume is really important and you want to get a lot of it. Even if your body isn't fully recovering from what you're doing, it can still be helpful. It will still adapt later. What's nice about volume is that we can actually define it mathematically pretty easily. Say I'm doing 5 sets of 10 squats. The volume is just the pound reps. So say I'm doing 100 pounds, so that means I'm doing 50 reps at 100 pounds, that's 5,000 pound reps. That's the volume on the squats. That's it, it's that simple. Now there are a lot of nuances to this, but as a general model, more is better. And volume, number one most important thing. If you get volume right, if you get the intensity of that volume right, you're gonna make a lot of progress. Now, intensity is an absolutely critical part of the volume equation, and it can render your volume useless, high risk, or extremely effective. Intensity is defined as how demanding a movement is for you. We have 4 main ways to define it. For strength training, we use the percentage of your 1 repetition maximum. For cardio, percent maximum heart rate, RPE, or rating of perceived exertion, 1 being very easy and 10 being maximal. Repetitions in reserve, which is a subjective guess on how many more repetitions you could do if you needed to. If your intensity is too low, your volume won't be a significant stimulus for adaptation, and your body will basically feel it doesn't need to adapt. On the other hand, if your intensity is too high, it will be so challenging that you'll find it hard, if not impossible, to do enough volume to make good strides in training, and you'll probably have to be careful about higher injury risk. We want to find that Goldilocks zone with intensity and gradually increase the resistance over time to provide more stimulus. Remember, as you get stronger, more skilled, or in better shape, the same exercise will become lower and lower intensity for you. Another really cool thing about intensity is that you can see it. I've had clients for many years tell me something is too hard or too easy for them. And I can always tell what's really going on. This is due to something called the force-velocity relationship. I always used to wonder why, if I could lift something easily, I could never seem to really accelerate. It always seemed to move at a constant velocity. This is because our muscles actually produce less force during contractions the faster they're shortening. This means if you watch someone lift, despite anything they may tell you, you can always get a good idea of how strong they are by how fast they can move the bar. If you and I both deadlift 100 pounds and the bar is moving with constant velocity, we are both producing 100 pounds of force to lift the bar. However, if I can only lift the bar in 1 second and you do it in half a second, we can be reasonably sure that you are far stronger than me. On the other side, the slower the bar moves, the harder or higher intensity it is for us. Watch as I get closer and closer to my maximum here, and how much slower I can lift the bar as the weights get heavier. This one I'm calling the golden rule of progress. Not something I've actually taught explicitly before, but something that's always driving what I'm thinking about with programming and training. And so the idea is very simple. If you're making progress, you're good. If you're not making progress, things have to change. And so we can break this down for everything, right? So it's not just you come to movement class, I feel I'm getting better, great. We can go a lot deeper than that. You start training with me, with anyone else, whatever. Is your flexibility improving? And then you can break that down further. Specific expressions of your flexibility, are those improving? If not, the first thing is do more volume. Add volume. Remember, volume is the most important driver of progress. You're very likely doing too little to maximize progress, which means doing more will help you more. And again, if you are making progress, we're pretty good. We might want to tinker with things so that we make more progress, we make progress more consistently. But if we are making progress, we're good. You know, I don't care what kind of program you're doing. If it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, you're gonna get the little 2-pound pink dumbbells and you're gonna do 50 reps of, of these guys. Yeah, and you hope that's gonna improve your strength and build muscle. You know, I would argue that's very unintelligent and it's not gonna work very well. But theoretically, if it did, and if you continued making progress with that idiotic program, that would be great, right? Like, maybe there's something genetically where potentially working at that very low intensity, potentially for those that higher volume, could work quite well for you. You know, and there are cases where weird things like that happen, where for some people working at 50% of their 1 rep max is really helpful, where for most of us 50% is very little, very easy, and we're not going to get much adaptation out of it. So in any part of your training or your life, think about this. Are you making progress? Is it improving? If it is, keep doing what you're doing. If you aren't, or you're regressing, you gotta change things. You gotta continue changing things until you make progress. If you're making progress, you gotta keep going until it stops, and then you gotta change something. Next is something called growth mindset. This is actually from a book by Carol Dweck. It's called Mindset. This is something really important that I see a lot of the times with newer students that really can hold you back and make things a lot more frustrating. Fixed mindset is basically you assume that your attributes are fixed. So hence, if you receive feedback that, oh, hey, you're not doing this well, oh, you're not so good at this, or yeah, you're having a hard time with something, or even you don't receive any feedback, you just see other people are doing better than you at something. In a fixed mindset, if this is just the way I am and other people are just better than me, this really sucks, you know? And that's not the way things are, like for almost anything. It's never fixed. And so when you realize that and you adopt this growth mindset of basically just recognizing that you can change and improve and grow and develop skills in pretty much any area, it's a totally different thing, right? And so now if you see someone doing better than you, oh, no problem. I can just, right? I can work to improve and I can catch up, you know? Someone says, you did this wrong? Great, I can fix it, you know? And now I'll be better at it. Number 9, movement is incredibly complex. We have this intuitive thinking that movement is very simple, that it's kind of like for dumb people. Anyone can, go dance or play sports, but, smart people, we do engineering and science or whatever. If you're not as smart, then you go into sports. It's very interesting. Like, we are so designed and optimized for movement that we're absurdly good at it. And so you just don't recognize the complexity of what your brain is actually doing when we move and play sports. But for instance, if you ask any engineer to build a robot that's gonna do any single task that we can do easily. For instance, move a piece on a chessboard. There are smartphones that can easily defeat the best chess grandmaster. How many computers can move those pieces, even at the level of a 5-year-old? It's a much harder task, far harder task when you actually look at all the things that go into it. We're so much better at it, but it's such a more difficult task than even beating a grandmaster at chess. Number 10, strength is for everyone. I don't care who you are. I don't care how out of shape you are. I don't care what you weigh, what your gender is, how old you are. Strength is important. You have it already, and you can build more. Strength training is not just for weightlifters and young, athletic, healthy people. You don't have to start with 300 pounds or 200 pounds. You don't have to start with an empty bar. You can start with nothing. You can start with body weight. You could start in positions where your body weight is supported and it's less than body weight. It's still strength training, right? And so again, our principles from before, volume and intensity. We want the proper intensity and we want a good chunk of volume, and we're gonna make progress. It doesn't matter how out of shape you are, how old you are, how weak you are. It's important, it's helpful. You'll build bone density, muscle mass, you'll live longer. It's a good, important thing that everyone should do. Don't be intimidated by what other people are doing, what weights people are lifting, what weights you think you might have to lift. All you have to do is challenge yourself, whatever that is. You might be surprised. You might be able to do a lot more than you think. I went to visit my great aunt a few years ago. She was in her 90s. The exercises they gave her, she was just doing, curls with this little soup can. And that would be fine, except she's doing them this easily. And so guess what? There's no challenge. It's a single muscle thing. I said, no way. Like, come on, we're gonna do some squats, And so for her, how much weight are we gonna do are we gonna challenge those squats? Nothing. No weight. From sitting on the couch to standing up. That's it. That's her squat. That's the weight that's a good challenge. And that was very successful. That was very helpful for her. She got a lot stronger in just a few days. Strength training really is for everyone. It's probably the most important thing you can do to avoid injury as well. And this is something people don't talk about. Number 11, physical capacities are important, but they are not the end all be all. When you guys try new things, when you try new movements, you'll be very tempted to tell yourself or to tell me or people around you that I can't do this because I'm not strong enough, I'm not flexible enough, whatever, blank, I'm not tall enough, my legs aren't long enough, whatever, some physical capacity that you think you don't have, when in reality, it's a lot more rare than you think. Usually, when you do something new, it's not the physical capacity that's limiting you, it's your ability to execute with the capacities you have. If your technique isn't good, it's not gonna be efficient. And so you're gonna feel you need more strength or you need more mobility, and you'll feel that you don't have enough, when the reality is you're just not using the things you have properly. Physical capacities are important, we wanna develop them. However, when you're trying complex movements, pretend that they don't exist. Be very careful about using them as excuses when you can't do something. Generally, you will be able to find a way to pull it off. I hope you guys learned a lot. Let me know if you have any questions, and have a great day.